Hi everybody, I'm Greg Vadney, the director of the Rahr West Art Museum. We'd like to share with you a full tour of our historic Vilas Rahr mansion. The Vilas Rahr mansion was home to two families and has been home to our museum, the Rahr West, since 1950. Joseph and Mary Vilas, the first owners, built and moved into the house in 1893. In 1909, the Rahr family stepped in. They were in this house until the late 1920s. The house sat vacant, other than some caretakers who lived on the third floor. In 1941, the city of Manitowoc was gifted this magnificent house by Clara Rahr, widow of Reinhard Rahr, for use as a museum and civic center. We're very happy that we've been able to continue that mission, and we plan to do that for many years to come. As you wander through the rooms of the Rahr West, make sure that you do take heed of the artwork that you find on the walls. Our art collection includes pieces from established artists like Georgia O'Keeffe, Andy Warhol, Andrew Wyeth, William Bouguereau. Some of the world's greatest artists are kept here. Marc Chagall, Picasso. And we at the Rahr West take great pride in being able to be the custodian of this great artwork for the Manitowoc community. One of our great docents, Kathy Bernhardt, will take you through room by room and tell you about the history and the interesting facts of this historic place.
My name is Kathy Bernhardt, and I am a docent here at the Rahr West Art Museum. I am a registered nurse, and when I retired from nursing, from intensive care to hospice, I wanted to do something that was very different from my job. And here at the Rahr, with the appreciation for art and the memory of history and how things build on each other and come to be, this was a place that I found very satisfying to become a volunteer and a docent. Today, I'm going to take you through our mansion. First of all, the room we are in now is the porte cochere, and this is where, when the house was built, it was open, and the horses and carriages would come in through the archway. The family could get out of the cart and they could come into the house. The servants could take the food and the supplies out and take that into the kitchen. Across the way is where the coachman lived. His family lived upstairs. Downstairs they stabled the horses and the coaches, and then ultimately it became a garage. Next, we will enter the mansion the way the family would enter the mansion. This mansion was built in the late 1800s by Joseph and Mary Vilas. And they built this 13-bedroom mansion and lived in it for approximately 6-7 years. This is the couple. Joseph was both of them were born in New York. Joseph was involved in merchants, lumber, textiles, and he also was responsible for bringing the railroad from Milwaukee up to Manitowoc and then over into Appleton. He served as a draft commissioner during the Civil War. He was a state senator, and he also was mayor of Manitowoc for 3 years. They lived in this house for about 7-8 years total. Mary was very ill, and they say she actually never even went upstairs to see the second floor. And I'll show you her bedroom, which is down here on the first floor, or what used to be her bedroom. Joseph came back from a trip to Chicago to find out that Mary had died. And then he died later upstairs of an illness that he had intractable pain, and he ended his own life upstairs. Then they built this house and they died. It was left empty for a while, and in 1910 it was purchased by Reinhard Rahr. And Reinhard and his wife, they had 4 children altogether, and they lived here and they remodeled the house a bit. If you look to the back of the room, you would see the lights on the wall. Originally, those were gas lights. So that meant at night, when the Vilases lived here, the servants would have to come and light all the gas lights. When Reinhard Rahr and his family moved in, they changed them to electricity, and it was about the time where you could convert things to electricity. The front entrance to the mansion, where the guests could come in, is the door directly next to that gas light. And that's a beautiful stained glass. That is the only stained glass here that was not original. Well, Reinhardt died and Claire lived here for quite a while, but she was beginning to spend more and more time in California. And at some point she donated this mansion to the city of Manitowoc to be a civic center and a community center. And at that time, it was during World War II that this occurred. And so it kind of sat until the early 1950s when people were getting back to a regular life after the war, and then great remodelings were done. This room, this huge room we're in right now, was 2 rooms. And if you look up at the ceiling, you'll note there's a difference in the decorating in the ceiling. The room we are in right now was the dining room. As you can see, the major beam indicates where the entryway came. There was a 2-sided fireplace where the mirror is now. So the family could sit here in the dining room and eat, be served from the kitchen. And as friends and relatives came in, they could be warmed by the fire in the reception area. Well, here we are in the parlor, in the front parlor, and this is where the adults would gather for the most part. Children were seldom allowed into the parlor. The wallpaper here is a reproduction of the wallpaper from pictures that were obtained. The fireplace is one of the original fireplaces. There were 6 fireplaces when the mansion was built. The Rahr family, they moved in and they did some remodeling, and this furniture is from the period that they lived here. The chandelier is from the Rahr malting tasting room, and it was brought over and placed in the parlor. You can see that it was a very dignified area. Next to the fireplace, back when the Rahrs owned this home and lived here, well, much of the weather here in Wisconsin is cool, and very often they had a fire. And when guests came in, especially women, at that time their makeup was wax-based. And if they sat too close to the fire, it would start to melt a little bit. They would place that stand with the picture in between the woman who's sitting down and the fire. I wanted to show you all the pocket door that closed this room off. This is a feature you'll see in many older homes in the Manitowoc area. Next, we'll go over and see Mary Vilas's bedroom and sitting room.
When Joseph and Mary Vilas first moved into the home in 1893, Mrs. Vilas was infirm, and so her bedroom was built on the ground floor of the house.
Now we're in Mary Vilas's sitting room when this house was built. Visitors could come in, she could come out of her bedroom, which is the room in back, and they could visit. Mary's bedroom was there. There was a much smaller doorway at the time. There were so many remodelings done here, but at any rate, they opened it up now so that it's almost one continuous room. Mary had heart disease and she would lapse into comas. And when she died, her husband was not here, she was brought back and laid in state in this room for 3 days. Because in the past, she had lapsed into coma and people thought she was dead. So they wanted to make sure that she did not wake up. So this is where she laid in state. The room back there, her bedroom, at one time had a full bath, and that was all removed in one of the remodels. This is the solarium, and it is attached to what was once Mary Vilas's sitting room. And in this room, in the winter, they could plant herbs and vegetables, and because the sun comes in from the south in the morning and part of the afternoon. So it's a very warm little area. Now we use it to display some of our beautiful artwork. When the Rahrs bought this house, they remodeled this room and made this a library and another library and music room in Mary Vilas's bedroom. So this is Mary Vilas's bedroom, at least it was at one time. And as I said, there was a bathroom and a full bathroom in this room, so she never had to try to go up the stairs to the other bathrooms. When the Rahrs moved in, it became kind of a library music room. And at that time, in the evening, there was no internet, there was no TV, very little radio. So people would entertain themselves in the evening, and often the children would learn to play instruments, and they could get together and play their instruments and sing, or they could come into the library here and play board games. After a while, this building became too small for the community center and the civic center. It was at that point, it was almost about to be just left empty when Ruth and John West stepped forward and said they would set up a foundation to continue to support this as a landmark, which it became in 1977. And they would do that, and they would also add 2 art galleries, which they have attached to the mansion. So there's the Ruth West Gallery and the John West Gallery. That is how the name Rahr West Art Museum came to be. So now we'll go to the upstairs. There are 6 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, and there are 6 bedrooms on the 3rd floor. We won't be going into the 3rd floor. We're currently using it for storage for some of the activities that go on here in Manitowoc, but we will go through the bedrooms up on the 2nd floor. I usually point out to people in the woodwork that the carving is mostly an overlay. This is sawn oak, and mostly these are things that are applied and glued to the oak. And whenever they've had to remodel and try and match, it was a very delicate operation to try and match the different patterns on the wood. This house originally cost between $35,000 and $50,000. It was designed by the architects that built the Pabst Mansion down in Milwaukee. So these are the original stained glass windows on the landing between the 1st and the 2nd floor. So now we're on the 2nd floor landing or hallway, accesses the 6 bedrooms up here. And we're looking at a chandelier that actually was found in the basement. And people didn't realize originally, or at that time, that this was very particular glass made by a man who designed things for Tiffany's. And so it was, again, cleaned up, brought up here to decorate this hallway entrance. You'll notice that the bedrooms aren't set up as bedrooms anymore. In fact, most of the house right now is a display area for our permanent collection, most of which donated by Ruth West. And it's rotated frequently so people can see different pictures from our permanent collection. So I am coming out of what was once called a water closet. This was once a bedroom. Each bedroom had a little sink and an area underneath for the commodes. So if someone needed to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, they would use the commode. This room was redesigned and reestablished as a library by John Nash, a local attorney.
The Nash Library, filled with non-circulating books concerning art and architecture, is named after the museum's original board president, Mr. John Nash.
When the house was built, they used a cistern to collect water, and right now it is our courtyard. And under our courtyard would be the area where they would collect the water. They'd pump it up to the 3rd floor of the house, and then they'd use gravity to feed the water closets and the whole household, actually. This room was the valet's room for Mr. Vilas, and it has its own water closet. The valet would stay here, and the next room, it has a doorway directly to Mr. Vilas's bedroom. Currently, it is being used to house this part of the Simon Schwartz ivory collection.
Simon Schwartz was an industrialist from the Manitowoc area who spent a great deal of time in China in the middle part of the 20th century. There, he amassed an impressive collection of ivory that spans 4 centuries. He donated this ivory to the Rahr West, and it's now featured in this room.
So this is the master bedroom, and this was Joseph Vilas's bedroom. And as you can see, he had his own fireplace. There was a bathroom here at one time, a full bath, and this was the room where he passed away. It is currently being used to display our doll collection, and we have a doll collection from many different countries in a case over here, and we have a dollhouse made by a local Manitowoc man for his daughter. They filled it with detailed furniture from Marshall Fields. This was in 1912. They were already doing carving of that quality and replicas of that quality. And then there's another small figurines of a dining room, a formal dining room. And again, the detail in there is marvelous. You can see the curves on the crust of bread. You can see the individual grapes on the food in the dining room. This room was adjacent to another bedroom, which we now have our porcelain in. The 3 bedrooms directly above us where we've been, in the library, the valet's room, and here, were for guests. And the last 3 bedrooms were for the servants. Okay, so this is a bedroom adjacent to Joseph Vilas's and Reinhard Rahr's bedroom. And we currently use it to house our porcelain collection. There's birds, there's different animals, beautiful horses in the collection.
In this room, you'll see displayed a number of porcelain sculpture from the Edward Marshall Baum Porcelain Company. Baum, a noted sculptor, founded the Baum Porcelain Company in New Jersey in the mid-20th century. And he created numerous animal sculptures in limited release.
Across the room here is our eagle, and there's the great bald eagle. There are 2 baby eagles, and there are 2 eggs, signifying the past, the present, and the future. Next, we'll be going into the Kamogawa room, which used to be a bedroom. So this at one time was a bedroom, and now is a receptacle for the wonderful gifts we've received from our sister city, Kamogawa, Japan. In the early 1990s, the state of Wisconsin and a state in Japan decided to become sister states. Kamogawa was identified as a city that would match up well with another city, and over several meetings it became clear that Manitowoc would be a great place to have a sister city. So in these past 20-some years, we have received multiple gifts during our exchanges. Sometimes the people from Japan come here, sometimes we go over to Japan. So these are some of the gifts. This is a samurai soldier, and you can see behind there are arrows and bows, and there's samurai swords. We have multiple pictures and little statues. We have a kimono and an obi and a Japanese doll. So this was created by an elementary school teacher in Japan, and I'll give you the opportunity to read what it says, okay? And what it says is, "The winds shape the ebb and flow of our lives." It was presented to us in 1999. Well, this is the dumbwaiter, and a dumbwaiter delivers materials from whatever floors it's on. So this goes from the basement to the first floor in the kitchen area, to the second floor, and then to the third floor. It was converted to electric. It used to be pulley, but it was converted to electric, and it still functions when they have to move things from the basement on up into the other areas. At the time it was probably linens and food, but now it's used for our supplies. And the last room we have, our wood carving collection.
This room is filled with folk art created by a Manitowoc area artist, Richard Young. This entire room was a donation facilitated by the Kohler Foundation.
This concludes our tour of the Rahr West Mansion.
Thanks for joining us on this tour of the historic Vilas Rahr Mansion. And thank you, Kathy, for taking us through that tour. We welcome you at any time, all year long, to the Rahr West Art Museum, where you can explore our galleries and this wonderful historic home. The Rahr West is free to the public. We ask you to come back again and again as we change the dynamic art collection throughout the galleries of the museum. For more information and a schedule of events, go to www.rahrwestartmuseum.org.